All right, folks, welcome back. 皆さん、おかえりなさい。今日は6日目です。We're almost approaching a month. It's almost been a month of WaniKani. Let's see. Yesterday we had a wonderful conversation in which I have like another pocket story for this. So we'll see if the opportunity presents itself. Largely, we talked about various things actually. Viewpoints, opinions, maybe some existential crises. Things about, yeah, there were a lot of different things, but I like to highlight the idea of technology dependence, right? Technology dependence, one of the core topics of yesterday, dealt with the idea of navigating innovation or intellectual optimization that surpasses perhaps a emotional self-awareness of humans, right? It's kind of a personal fun topic that I think about a lot of times, which I did a little bit of that today before I hopped on, so I have a pocket story for this. It's kind of funny. I tried it out in the Discord and thought it was pretty funny when I typed it up. Anyways, let's get to our lesson. Today is also our last day in which I wrap up the 100-day interim review of Duolingo Japanese, right? And my progress report for the last 100 days, which marks the end of the 300-day total. Got some thoughts. Most of today's Duolingo thing later on with Duolingo Japanese is going to be very retrospective, kind of similar to the various conversations we had during WaniKani. I did finish late yesterday for that reason, so makes sense that these things come up around 8 these days. Let's see where we're at when we finish these reviews. As far as I'm aware, that's pretty much, we probably get one lesson and it's probably on old. Can Onyomi read on old? Or are they gonna just go to Voodoo? Alright, I guess we'll find out. So let's get in here. Keyboard, let's go. What was for character? Oh, the Big Lebowski reference. Right. Our mnemonic works there, so that's pretty sufficient. Whoa! It's stick. Oh, we haven't seen that in a while. Okay. Jeez. Oops. Okay. Oh, these are some of the first ones. We got some of the first radicals coming back around. um And still type this. Oops. For you, this for you, the mnemonic. Okay. Ugh. My T button double actuates. Oh. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Oops. 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 Okay. Forgot. That was like the suckers thing, the suckers mnemonic. That was like, eh. Okay, they accept that, sure. What was this? It was like cutting a triceratop in half. But how do you get to... I'm doing pretty well. Are you to finish up? Yes, I am finishing it up today. So lots of yapping. We only have 4 constructs to do, and then we do some yapping, some reflections. This was Triceratops sunbathing. But how did they get to Han? Let me see. I have no idea. Or I'm not gonna wait on it. Oh, Han Solo. That's right, the laser blaster cutting it in half. Well, that's 3 out of 4 of the 4 disagreeable mnemonics that I had yesterday. I mean, it doesn't change that I know what it is, but that one's a little bit rough. What was it? So we had the mowing. They just have to come up. Mnemonics and mnemonics. How was your Saturday? Salt. What was that? Mnemonic for. Like, they had to choose, right? They had to give me a mnemonic to determine, I guess, ties to things important still works. Because there were 2 reads for that, so they had to give a mnemonic to decide which read it was. Oh boy. Oh. Yankees. Maybe you should rewatch Star Wars. Don't you remember Han Solo cutting dinos in half and exactly in half in the movies? With the laser blaster? I was trying to think, is there a Jedi with the name Han in their name, like in either in their first name or the last name? So you could use, like, you can imagine a lightsaber slashing something in half, but a laser blaster, I guess if you have like not a laser blaster, but if you had like one of those like channeling lasers, I don't know if that's a thing. I actually don't remember if there's like a channeling laser where, you know, you just shoot a large beam and then you saw something in half, but it's more like a really large lightsaber. I don't think I can't recall a scene where maybe like a gigantic ship, like, you know, cut something in half, but I honestly have a very hard time picturing a laser blaster cutting something in half. Saturday was good. Mine was pretty. It was all right. Yesterday I was pretty tired, but we managed. And you mentioned you don't work it at the moment, so do you have any different activities or habits on weekends? Not particularly. Like, no, not particularly. So because I don't work, yeah, as that's a very legitimate question. My routine stays consistent through the entire week. So I don't particularly do anything outside of like special occasions. Like you know, Chinese New Year's is coming up, or when I have some like annual obligations. Those are the only times when there's idiosyncrasy changes. However, for habits, weekends, they're almost consistent across the board. The content that I consume changes. right? The content, but the activity and the habits, the like functionality and the mechanics stay the same, right? Like I know it's a combination of being reductive, but not reductive as well. Like for example, anime doesn't say consistent. However, the activity or the habit of watching anime is consistent. And then like I doom scroll a little bit before I get on stream for like some inspirational purposes. So I do have a pocket story today for that, which I could talk about because today is review day and it's not too bad. So I'll have more about that in just a bit since we have 17 more to go before 7 rolls around. I have some reviews at 7 and 8. Give me a sec. Okay. Oh. Oh, home. Oops. I am expecting 0 WaniKani lessons today. There's one lesson if Hurui, if old comes up. If old comes up, then there's one kanji left, which is old, which I expect eventually. I don't know what the read is yet at the moment, but old is the only character, and in order to get more lessons, they're either going to be vocabulary, which is hard to predict right now for me. However, the rest is like 4 out, where 3 days including today out. No, 4 days including today out before we hit level 4, for the big splash peak day. So peak day is right after the day after I finish my Chinese Duolingo wrap up for the 100 days. So the timing is, I can't slack off. The timing's locked in. Otherwise, the last day of the Chinese Duolingo review is going to line up with peak day on WaniKani, and that's going to be a tough one. So it's looking pretty good right now. Shin, right? Shin. This was my first error in WaniKani. Man, it's been a while, hasn't it? It's almost been a month. This was my first error in WaniKani. I typed fin without the S. I'm pretty sure that was my first error in WaniKani. I typed fin. Heckin' fin. It's a Chinese thing. When I think of like, or actually no, it's a Japanese thing too. I type the singular form of all the English words. Like I translate it, like I interpret functionally the singular form of every single like noun. So whenever I type fin, I mean it's fin and fins, not, you get into that a pattern of, oh yeah, you just infer if it's plural or not. So the translating to fin and fins, and like, dang it, they got me. Pretty sure it's okay. Ah. Oh, right. Component. I mean, radical. Right. Good catch. Thank you, WaniKani. Right, the radical. I must say that's a pretty frustrating first error, but especially in the beginning, you do have to get used to what leeway wanting. Yeah, you kind of get used to it. You basically get used to it by the time you complete the first set. You understand. And sometimes I test them. I'm like, I haven't typed this. What happens if I type this? And that still tickles me spidey sense, so to speak. I do it on Duolingo too. I'm like, what if how did this one work again? Oh, this one's the one where the mnemonic needed some refresher, right? Or is it still... Can I still get away with it? Okay. Is it used, the other one? Yeah, okay. The reason I stop on this one is because of Chinese. Usually I stop on things that might be slightly concerning. Quizzes at the end of the lessons are a perfect place to test those things since you don't get penalized in the SRS for wrong answers there. Yes, but my quick, concise response to that is both. Because it's SRS, it's great that you don't get penalized for SRS, but because it's SRS, you want to do it after the next day and the following day because of SRS. Like, you test things when it's spaced out. You don't test things immediately after. Largely because you won't be thinking about other things other than the things you're exposed to. Like, in both cases, they're same, right? They're same but different, right? The following day you'll have different ideas once you consolidate and think about it, not immediately after. So it's kind of like getting a pop quiz at the end of class, or doing your homework and then coming to class for a quiz. Two different processes. Let's see. Norwal with the stool? What was Norwal with the stool doing? They're your friends. They're telling you about use. I can use. All right. So I have a short story. I think we're just gonna move on for today, but yeah, we hit the 2 notches, so that's fine. The pattern will still be the same at 5 because of the 2 notches. Yeah, I know what you mean. I also know you're not rushing the levels, so there's no issue as long as you don't mind delaying level ups as a... Well, I'm not rushing any levels because it's based on schedule. So I complete whatever. It's just 0-0. So whenever I finish, I don't wait on anything. So if it doesn't line up, it doesn't line up. So I just do whatever. I know that you can affect the way these things work using scripts, but I just do whatever it's queued up. So the rate limiting step is WaniKani. I'm not delaying or speeding up anything. So it's time gate. I'm used to very moderation when I reach a limit, but in this case, WaniKani is nowhere near my limit. I think I talked about this maybe 4 or 5 days ago during the last peak, like level 3 peak. I think for me, I would place my limit somewhere around 1,000 reviews. If there were 1,000 reviews, maybe 3 hours, 3 hours, 1,000 reviews. That's probably my limit. If I were to like dispense with talking and preparing for everything else. But generally speaking, I don't think WaniKani will be able to hit that limit. Oh, there. Hi. welcome again. Welcome back. Yeah, so for me, I just do whatever is available. So if I don't reach, 7 o'clock, I could drag my feet for another 9 minutes and reach 7. We'll probably not do these since I've ended my lesson or ended my stuff. So, yeah, delaying is irrelevant to me, or the pace of things are irrelevant to me. We try to make sure that the experience is gathered my entire attention. I mean, if you get a kanji review wrong, for example, you take a couple more days to get items to Guru, which will delay the level, but from what I understand of your approach, you don't mind. Yeah, but that's not a delay, that's part of the process. Once again, like, it's not about whether you get it wrong or not. Progression is irrelevant to the act of learning and repetition. So at least in my opinion. So you can consider it as a delay, but I am not delaying anything from my perspective, right? So if you get something wrong, there's something to be learned about it. It's only a delay if you think you're learning nothing from it. So it's a waste of time, or a delay as in a waste of time for progress if you don't use it functionally. And most of the time when I get something wrong, this is probably because it's extending from the testing things, right? Testing things. Thought I'm testing something, that's a purpose. So there's no delay in any progress. If you're testing something, you're intentionally and actively committing the action. A delay is when, honestly, it's kind of hard for me. Have I delayed something? I've delayed something. I've delayed the Duolingo Japanese review before. Actually, I delayed it by 3 or 4 days, and the delay was non-functional. I just didn't feel like doing it, which I did make a comment about. Like I was gonna take a break. All right, just take a break. That's the closest thing to a break. I was actually studying during the delay, though. I guess the difference there was it wasn't recorded. So I didn't record myself sitting there practicing my constructs for another 3 or 4 hours off stream. Largely because if I talk through it, my voice will be wrecked. So in a way, I delayed something to practice something that I already know. That can be considered a delay for me. In this case, if I consciously decide to test something, that's the time that I used for my own benefit. Yeah. And I'm aware of that. There's a leeway of, what is it, 10%? There's a leeway of 10% on kanji. At least it seems like it. Maybe it's not percentage based, but more like a flat rate. Like maybe it's -3 kanji every time. But in this case, for today, it happens to be 10%. For this level, it happens to be 10%. So like, yeah, it makes sense. I think it also relates back to an aspect we talked about a few days ago. To me, the workload consistency, mostly lessons, is important, but you don't mind the peaks. Yeah, so it's a sufficiency thing, right? It's a sufficiency thing. That's what I was gauging when I talked about it. I have sufficient energy, right? So I can allocate any amount of energy. I actually end stream a lot of times. I end stream with at least like 5 hours of productive energy. So there are days where I expend this 5-hour energy. So I am at 5 hours of excess energy. So my day doesn't necessarily end. Hey, MAKU. Oh, hey, Oni. It's been a while. Yes, it has been. Yeah. What is this kanji discussion about? It's about practice, WaniKani practice, or things about WaniKani practice, how I manage my energy levels. So when I end stream as planned, no digressions or anything. When I end stream when planned, I have at least 5 hours of more productive energy. Sometimes I stretch into it. So when do I stretch? Usually, say I end at midnight. I tend to try to end at midnight, my time. And I try to start between 5 and 6 p.m. lately. But before it used to be like 3 p.m. This is local time, so EST. This distance is the usual productive time for streaming. However, my productive day actually ends around 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. So if I go into this day, which yesterday I did a little bit, sometimes I get to 5 a.m. And that's when I would hit a energy cap, right? In terms of WaniKani, the volume, the density, the intensity can slightly change from activity to activity. However, WaniKani's intensity, if I were to like put like a Likert scale from 1 to 10 being very intense, right? Intense to 1 being laxed or very assisted. I'm going to use the word aided. WaniKani's score is about a 2. The most intense things I've ever done is probably presenting a debate or presenting a topic of choice. So when someone asks a very well-developed question, that's probably when it hits a 10. And when you hit a 10, that means I get tired quicker, right? So 10 being, I don't know, writing a thesis or something. I guess writing a thesis would be, or like a preparing for a seminar is probably a 10, something like that. Duolingo is a 1. Sometimes playing video games, like a puzzle game or something, you might get to like a 4. But most of the time, things are at a 1 because that's how technology has vastly depreciated the barrier to doing. Oh, I know one that I do online, like stream. Drawings about a 7 when I do Inktober. When I do Inktober, especially near the end, it drifts to a 10 near the end because I have to do 31 drawings back to back to back. From finish within the day. So I have to finish all my prompts from beginning to end, back to back to back. So near like the 29th to the 30th day, the rigors get really high. So I wouldn't pass a challenge, like I wouldn't do it more than a month. That's my limit. So we typically gauge my limit as I go. And that's how Duolingo and all that stuff was gauged. And for me, for WaniKani, I could do this for 14 hours. I mean, I could do this for the entire day before going to bed. The energy cap is very low for WaniKani. Since WaniKani is around a 2 or a 1, you know, outside of eating, maybe I'll eat on stream. I could do like a 36-hour stream or something, but that would be okay. It's very minimum effort. It's probably one of the attractions of SRS systems. It's minimum effort, right? 日本語は上手にありましたか？or なりましたか？まだまだです。お兄さん、少し。What you call it? For now though, I think WaniKani is pretty locked in. It's pretty good. Hanza Hero, we doubled the volume, right? We doubled the volume. Hanza Hero, you are the default function is that everything keeps progressing and everything's fixed. So you do your lessons regardless if it's unlocked or not, and it's in the functionality, right? It's like in the app itself, you can determine if you want to be locked behind, like the way WaniKani does it. However, in Hanza Hero, You just do your lessons. You keep doing your lessons. If things get burned, it gets burned. You keep doing your lessons. So that's an interesting take. It's kind of like a mix between Duolingo and WaniKani's approach to capping things. And I think I'm going to make that comment, by the way. I'm going to make this comment in the Duolingo review, the finalized review today. And that's the idea that Duolingo does not have capping. So does not have like a rotational capping on things. So you can get to a point where you've forgotten everything, which largely is probably one of the biggest criticisms. But people's solutions are not addressing the criticism. So hear me out, I suppose. One of the complaints about Duolingo is that Duolingo moves too slow. And I actually think Duolingo moves too quickly. And then they move so quickly that they don't go back over things. I think the word they typically use, they as in the most regular critics, are it's too repetitious, right? Because now you're thinking in sentences. And those sentences are repetitious. They provide too much context clues in the moment to remember those things. Meanwhile, WaniKani doesn't provide any of that, technically. You're looking for one word, like you're bouncing the things, right? It feels fast, but it's actually more repetitious than Duolingo. And one of the downsides of that kind of model is it makes things feel slow while it's not slow enough. And you get to the point where you have to fundamentally go back and do it yourself. You would agree that WaniKani is not very intense overall. That being said, I know that for yourself, I would not find it enjoyable to do up to 100 lessons in a row, especially when most items are new to you. That's understandable. For myself, learning capacity is equivalent to the energy that I have. So, if my workload, obviously this is different, right? If I had the same workload that you did, I'm not trying to say that I'm different because of some sort of inborn talent, but my workload is very high already. I'm constitutively higher in workload when it comes to handling new information. However, you, right, you do work and you have parenting obligations. You have a lot of things where it requires that you are consistent with static information through practice. I spend the large majority of my time not doing that. So the workload might be different. Like the enjoyments of the workload might be different. For a lot of people that are outside of the activities that I have, usually it's even less. It's far less. When it comes to novel lessons. In fact, the reason why WaniKani is more approachable when it comes to its volume is because a lot of it is static. Actually, WaniKani is far more static than Duolingo when it comes to associating things. So when you get like 10 or 20 lessons, the intensity of those lessons are, the bottom line is you use rote memory. That's the bottom line, which is the minimum amount of units to remember something. Then you have the mnemonics that's stuck on top, right? Then you can commit some energy to the mnemonics. And mnemonics is supposed to lift the energy requirement over a course of repeating that exercise. In Duolingo, when you see it, you have to remember the entire context of the sentence, which requires an effort. And then when you see the context of the sentence, then you also have to expend energy to create your own mnemonics to remember the vocabulary if the sentence is not great. And then you need to commit the energy to remembering to review that after every subsequent exposure to that, because the exposure is going to stop, right? They're basically going to stop right after you leave the unit. And on occasion, like very rare occasion, it's going to come up again. Usually it comes up in the next 3 lessons and then it disappears like almost entirely. So you have to come up with your own effort-based micro scheduling for that exposure. WaniKani lifts that. So it may feel like you can do 100, you can do 10 lessons at a time, right? 10 lessons at a time as opposed to 100 lessons at a time. However, I see the day as a different mindset. I see the day as having lessons. So whatever my energy output is for that day, I'm gauging that. It's only been a month, right? I haven't really gauged the upper limit yet, but do I have energy in finishing the lesson set? And that set is irrelevant. I don't consider the number, but my energy available to finish my set. So say my energy is only good enough for 2 hours of WaniKani. Well, I just stop after 2 hours. If I get 15 lessons done, that's all the energy I have mustered for the 2 hours. If it takes me, you know, some days I'll have 40 lessons, that's fine. If it's still that 2 hours of energy. So that's kind of how I'm moderating whether I'm fit to keep this pace or not. And it keeps me flexible. So when we talk to, like, if we have a discussion that goes on for like 4 hours, then I don't have problems just stopping as long as I know that I can get the rest of the stuff done. So yesterday was intense. It was one of the more intense days, not necessarily because of WaniKani, but the summation of the entire day, because I had to write 15 constructs after Hansa Hero. And the nice thing about WaniKani, of course, is that SRS can be tailored so that you can cover a specific amount of content. You can view it as the amount of content that you want to cover. So 10 lessons if people plan. Demoいsomething だね. What character is that? That kind of looks like feels. Is that good? Kanji da ne. Interesting, but it feels good. Sorry, I was reading another message. So I think either way works as long as it keeps you consistent. For me, it's how much energy I have. So if I don't get it done, I don't get it done. That's what happens is it's the effort input. It's my measure of effort. So if I'm tired, then doing more lessons. I'm gonna say, I don't say this very often, but if I am tired and I continue to do lessons, I consider that as potentially risky or counterproductive, right? Because diminished return kicks in. So when I'm really tired, I don't do much more. This is a little different for people who have to work, right? You have to work even if you are tired. And yes, I'm not in that position anymore. So it would be interesting to see if I go back to work and do something obligatory, what would happen with my energy levels. The nice thing about not having any obligations is largely I try to always learn in peak condition at all times. What you've recently been doing on Duel, which feels good to you, is for recalling is to and grammar points, is upgrading lessons to legendary much later. Yes, I exactly I did that back in the day. So as of today, you're in section 3, but in parallel restarted section 2 with legendary lessons. Yes. So back in the day, right, there was 25 days. And hear me out, there's a I'll try to cover this as quickly as possible. So Duolingo, I used to just run on free Duolingo, right? I've already invested in a year of Duolingo now as a commitment to my Duolingo projects. But before, 25 days, right? There was a thing where at every 50 days, you get 3 days of super in Duolingo, okay? So there was a reason why my reviews were in 25-day periods. So 25 days, I would do a review, which is what I'm doing now. Originally, every 25 days. So I do the construct and the reviews myself. In a way, I'm reviewing all the things that have come before in a 25 days from the 6-day cycle. So at most, it's spaced out for less than 3 weeks out. And then on day 50, there will be a 3 days of super. I will use those 3 days to go back through in Legendary to catch up to the 50 day to the next 25 days. And then 75. And then 100. And this is the times before I started doing constructs. I did not write constructs yet. But then I was like, okay, so 25 is too frequent. Let's increase it to 50-day periods, right? So then it became 150 days and then 200 days. And it was all right. And this is where I started integrating constructs. So I have two to three layers. And then every 50 days, there will be 3 days in which I spend the next 3 days going over Legendary to pick up where I was as I'm going forward. So I'm going backwards with constructs while going forwards with Legendary. And now, though, it's 100-day cycle to see where my upper limit is. So now I'm doing the 300 days. And it's a little, I'll review most of this in today's wrap up, right, of the 100 days. It means I'm probably going to dial it back to 50. And now that I have super, I'll probably do legendaries wrapping around whenever I plan on it. And I take about 6 or 7 days to review for this, but to review the 50-day stuff, but I took about 9 to 10 days to prepare for the 100-day review. So I have already set in my schedule to do forward review and back review, much like SRS, right? Because Duolingo doesn't have SRS. It's a static thing where the exposure is based on a rotating thing that is very, very static. It's very predictable what is being rotated out, as opposed to dynamics, right? SRS tends to be a little bit more dynamic, at least the rudimentary. The legacy SM2 is dynamic in some way. So yeah, I totally agree with that approach. You've never used WaniKani before? You try Nin Chinese, which looks similar, but I couldn't get into it. I see. Hanzi Hero is the thing that I'm using for that side of things, the Chinese side of things. WaniKani is for Japanese. However, Hanzi Hero also do this kind of thing. It's actually inspired probably legitimately off of this. Nin Chinese, I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that one. In terms of something like this, the closest thing I can think of is Hanzi Hero. And then there are other apps that people like to talk about when it comes to Chinese, like Du Chinese for reading, and Chairman Bao for like newspaper related content, like reading current events through reading. And then the startup app that a lot of people use for Chinese is Hello Chinese. That's probably the closest. And I started with Duolingo for both. So actually most of the stuff is going to start from Duolingo. And then we explore other things. Yeah, you used to use Du Chinese, but I'm too cheap to keep paying for it. Yeah. So that's the downside, right? So accessibility is kind of tough. Du Chinese, I'm not sure if someone like made a version of it, right? Du Chinese as a sister site. Oftentimes you might be able to find like competitive sister programs because the internet is a big place, so people can iterate on specific designs. Like, for example, I invest in WaniKani and Hanzi Hero largely because I can. However, you can customize your Anki, right, in order to achieve a similar feel if you like those things. And both products you're allowed to use for trial periods, so you can kind of get an idea. and then it can be mirrored in a sister thing. So to me, if you tested Hanzahiro, which you can test for about a month of content. Yeah, I don't think I even crossed the month of content yet. You can see what works and then like customize it somewhere else, like using an open platform like Anki. For example, Duolingo's Max program, right? Their Max program has an LLM design for Spanish. It's probably like slightly tweaked and modified. However, you can probably mirror it using like ChatGPT or something. So it's one of those things. You gotta find out what works for you and how accessible it is. I started with Duolingo for other reasons, but one of them is like no commitment, right? No commitment in terms of financial things. And what I'm talking about with Gecko right now is how to adapt to the stuff that doesn't seem to work or you didn't get into it. How do you make it work, right? Gecko is using Duolingo in a very similar way that I did, and that's no surprise because at least I've come to know Gecko, that we have very similar outside of our like personal preferences and whatnot, mechanically and objectively we find ways to remediate. It's kind of fun to get confirmation of that, Gecko, that you come to a similar workaround utilizing the tools that are available in Duolingo. And for me, I came to that same conclusion. It kind of shows a little bit of objectivity, if you know what I mean. Gecko, whenever two people clearly have different subjective point of views, however, we both ended up mechanically doing very similar things, that kind of is a heartwarming validation that you can still being proficient at something requires a combination of subjectivity and objectivity, regardless of how both of us interpret, our energy consumption and how we remember things. We actually concluded with what Duolingo has to offer, utilizing it to space it out naturally. Like for me, lots of people talked about like Duolingo doesn't have SRS, like Anki's better at tracking your things. Like, yeah, probably. And you know what? I already do that. Like, that's how you get through school. That's how you get through university. That's how you get a PhD. Like, a lot of it, like, it's not like all of it. It's what I mean is it doesn't account for all of it, but it's part of the experience. You got to learn how to learn, schedule, right? All these problem solving skills, it's not a coincidence. And I say this as a very weird, humble flex, I suppose. It's not a coincidence that I've seen all of this before. As in, if you threw a dictionary at me, I will make the SRS for myself. However, having all these tools is super convenient. Like, I like it a lot. Now, I already do these things without tools. So this is where the perspective is different. If you haven't ever done any of these things before, you are dependent on this tool to perform that task. And in that consequence, are unable to appreciate what the tool is doing for you. Like, for example, I recognize that if I stop using WaniKani, I will have to schedule and do the things myself. When someone else stop using WaniKani and they haven't like had a lifetime of experience, gone to formal education, had to troubleshoot and do all the things the old way, once the tool disappears, they will be reminded of how dependent they are. And they can choose, which is what I'm doing here. What is my goal in looking at WaniKani and Hanzahiro? I want to highlight what the tool is doing and what you can extract, or what I, by demonstration, can extract from what the tool is doing for me. So then the future, when I go use a different other tool and it doesn't do what WaniKani does, I don't miss WaniKani. Like, I'm not dependent on WaniKani. The reason why I say this is because one of the behavioral consequences of dependency, dependency is that you want to look for the same feel over and over again because you're dependent on them, as opposed to exploring what this dependency is. So for example, when you start with Anki, someone's gonna say like, oh, it's not as good as Anki, or it's not the same as Anki. Like, well, no kidding, it's not the same as Anki, it's different, right? The thing is, you've been using Anki. Do you understand the dependency that makes you say it's not as good and it's not as same? Do you understand what is Anki making you feel good and what is Anki not doing well, or what is not doing for you and what is doing for you? Like, both of them are important. And then go and evaluate a tool that is not Anki, which by default it can't be the same, right? Or it's unlikely to be the same. However, you have all the learning capacity to bring whatever you learned from Anki into the new tool and combine them in a different way. The idea is this is synthesizing learning. You're synthesizing your learning capacity. So when I look at WaniKani, I'm not treating WaniKani only based on its face value over time. At first, I'm doing that. Like, for the first month, I'm like, I trust WaniKani, but I've already started doing other things on top of WaniKani, right? The stuff that I've taken here and there and whatnot. So the idea is you are more than one tool. The thing that I want to highlight about this is the human condition. The human condition dictates that if you're familiar with something, you might not agree with me about this, but when you're familiar with something, it's something you practiced. And inherently, it becomes more efficient over time. And it also becomes more sentimental over time. This sentimentalism can create complacency. With this complacency, like say, oh, you've played your 10th game that feels just right, the thing that you're looking for, that comfortable, same feeling. Well, you become less and less engaged with learning, in my opinion. Like, learning in an active way. You can still learn incredibly efficiently, passively, by consistently using the same feel. So, for example, if you learned Japanese, you can apply all of that familiarity, practice, efficiency to Chinese. So what do people do when they use WaniKani? They look for something similar, and they said they want to learn Chinese, so they find Hanzahiro. And you might be thinking, no, that's kind of bold, that's presumptuous. No, it's in the forums. So one of the regular comments in Hanzahiro is their reference to WaniKani's structure. And what they do is they keep requesting Kevin, the developer of Hanzahiro, to change and add features so that it's closer to WaniKani. To me, that is something that someone knows what works for them and they no longer want to explore the way they learn, right? For me, I don't do that. I deliberately try to learn different ways and bring whatever I learned about learning to the new thing. If it's not possible, that's fine. It's, you know, like sometimes you have to do a lot of things and juggle. The idea is most people nowadays, due to algorithms, again, it's a repeating, the normalized behavior is to constantly seek for the thing you're most efficient at, right? If you're learning your mathematics, if you're learning your mathematics through this with a with a Roblox character, right? A Roblox character running around in the background and then a text scrolling here. If you're learning that, you're going to attempt to frame everything around this, right? And that optimizes, or not really optimizes, but that iterates and improves efficiency. That also means that this is probably the thing that will be selectively biased. This is going to be something that restricts your capacity to learn in a different environment, because that's the environment that you're most trained on, right? There's a difference between being trained on a learning method and the benefits that come with it, and a person who likes learning. It's a really big difference. A person who's constantly trained on the same model and focuses on training on the same model, in my opinion, is not what I mean when I say I love learning. When you love learning, you like the aspect of learning things differently. It's learning itself is a skill. The content you learn are also skills, separate skills. Japanese and Chinese are different skills, but learning them can apply the same skill, which that's kind of how most people go about it these days. If you did Anki for Japanese, you will probably do Anki for Chinese. If you do WaniKani for Japanese, you'll probably pick up Hanzi Hero as a consideration for Chinese. And I'm doing that right now. I'm participating in the thing. What I do, or what I try to do differently, is that I'm using WaniKani and Hanzi Hero, and I'm doing the pros and cons, and then all the things I do on top of it to embrace it, embellish it, participate, right? Going back to yesterday's comment, I like the things for what they are, and I also bring my own game to the product. Inherently, I use the product to understand what other people are experiencing, and then demonstrate that you can do way more than that, right? So over time, I'm going to end up looking like someone who don't use WaniKani strictly for WaniKani. And that might be the mod life, those people who stayed around and use scripts and whatnot and customized it. The question I always ask myself when people customize the thing is, are they customizing it in order for it to feel the same as something else, or are they customizing it because they want to explore their learning capacity? In my experience, the vast majority of people are doing the former, not the latter, as in they want to keep all their learning experiences and methods consistent, because they believe there's a best way, the most efficient way, and the only ways that are not a waste of time. So delaying, being faster, being slower, there are set rules and metrics for these people to determine the value of learning. And myself, I'm not concerned with that. I'm a collector. In my opinion, I'm 80-20%. I'm 80% in discovering where are my limitations and capacity. How do I learn to draw when I don't think I could draw? I learn. Right? When someone says, oh, I'm not creative, because they prescribe to the idea that they're not creative. When they say they can't draw, they're like, well, I haven't ever drawn before. It's like, yeah, well, you have to start before you do that. It's like, do you think learning drawing is something you're not familiar with? Like, that's probably true to them, because the mindset is that different areas of learning are distinctively compartmentalized for a human being. Is writing kanji similar to drawing? Well, not for a lot of people. It's interesting because I see that as a great bridge to drawing. Like, if you can write different lines for kanji, you can create simplified shapes for drawing, right? On dual Spanish, wait. You find it fun to see the similarities in our experience and approaches, while also seeing the differences brought by the order in which we introduce the tool. And I love this type of discussion. Order does matter, and I love that because it puts into perspective time. Humans, right? We're humans. linear time creatures, so it puts into perspective time. On dual Japanese, you got to the middle of unit 5 out of 8, but stopped over a year ago. I'm thinking when you get to, you'll try to follow. Ooh, oh, we can do that. Yeah, there's a bunch of people who already know Spanish, and they're like waiting for this to happen. And yeah, Spanish is coming in. It's probably the beginning of March because it has to come after Like a Dragon, Yakuza Pirates. So it's probably sometime after my birthday. So after like the first week of March. I'm gonna give like a Dragon 2 weeks maybe. So Spanish is gonna be fun to see how what I'm looking forward to, and this is probably not as surprising anymore. What I'm looking forward to is how do I describe Spanish in Japanese and Chinese? Like, how am I going to connect them? I'm basically, that's one of my core principles, is to connect the things you learn with the other things you learn in ladder language, but like laddering languages. However, it doesn't have to be like like I'm gonna call it low effort, but it's not a bad thing. Like minimum resistance, path of least resistance. So we're talking about like a lightning bolt, right? Usually it takes the path of least resistance. And oftentimes I've been using Chinese, the relationship between Chinese and Japanese, and rationalizing the path of least resistance, right? Because kanji and Hanzi are naturally associated with each other, largely because they're literally associated with each other. However, when time comes Spanish, it's going to be interesting to figure out fun little clever ways of figuring out how kanji will be associated with the representation in Spanish. And then of course English has they share the use of Roman characters. So we'll definitely get to that English part at some point. Why is this, quote unquote, some people would say this is a waste of time. Right? Well, there's always the Japanese Spanish course on dual. Yes, there is, but I've already looked at the Chinese course on English, and not enough. It's probably a further down the line. Further down the line. Also keep in mind that my knowledge of Spanish is actually the highest. So it is. So even if it's under practice and I've forgotten a lot of things, there's a difference between reviewing what you've known before versus effectively new, even over a long course of time. So Spanish there were already 3 years of Spanish. And this is in a classroom situation. So to me, I'm using this unironically. I was way more efficient and focused on like progress, like raw progress when I was in the classroom. The reason why I say it's unironic is because right now the prevailing thought is whatever's on the internet is more efficient than the old school archaic formal education, which I would agree if we factor in psychological experiences. And that is, if you don't believe in obligation, discipline, exposure, and whatnot, then yes, formal education will be very inefficient. I have built my habits around being challenged by restrictive environments. So if I have to learn something, I am equipped, in my opinion, I'm typically equipped to making that happen due to ingenuity, critical thinking and problem solving. Oftentimes when people ask, does it work? Oh, this is bleeding into my Duolingo reviews, but does it work? I'm like, well, what kind of question is that, right? The question is the response is I make it work. And hear me out. Some people say, well, that's not a fact. You can't predict the future, right? Can't predict the future. It's like, okay, that's fair. So let's use whatever logic that they use. Usually they base it on facts, right? Well, Duolingo is a multi-million, or it might even be billion, but multi-million company. And somehow there are millions of users who believe that, right? I'm not going to even say this is I'm not going to even say the strong thing, like it's true. I'm going to say there are millions who believe this is a fact, that it works. So when you ask, do it work? Okay, so Spanish to Japanese course, rather. Not sure that a thing. More serious. I see what you mean, and that's the reason I'm doing the English to Japanese course and not French to Japanese on Duo. Yeah. In the future, though, I will do that. In the future, if there's someone that I meet, right? Let's say down the line, I haven't met anyone yet that I personally am motivated to do so, but for Japanese, for Chinese, I'm approaching, right? Eventually, I'm approaching conversation with Japanese and Chinese person. Now, the idea is my ideal interaction with someone who I'm willing to invest is someone who's also interested in language learning. So naturally, oftentimes, the language they're going to do is probably English plus something else. So at some point, I would leave the option open to do a project in which I use that target language to do the Duolingo English course, to provide commentary on that or whatnot, right? And that is my closest representation in a way to interact with people who are doing it the other way. And it can be very difficult to do apples and oranges things, but this is my way of empathy, right? Like, what? There was a YouTube short that I was going to use for this example. The YouTube short was it was something Hank. It was either something Hank or John. It kind of related to John's audiobook thing, right? Now imagine listening and reading, right, are two ends to understanding a book. So if one were to listen to the book, they might be encouraged to read the book, right? If someone is reading the book, they might be encouraged to listen to the book. And then when they listen or read a book, they might be encouraged to see the movie, right? And all of these are avenues for empathy. So I go back to basically my rule number one, or not really rule number one, no particular order, but one of the top rules. One of the top rules is I stream to demonstrate empathy. Otherwise, it would be me spouting out my own personal experiences and like, trust me, bro, this is what I do. Like, I'm not going around every day saying, as a person who have gone through the ropes of a PhD study in molecular biology, these are the things you should consider and always do. That's contextually out of time, out of space. What I mean by that is, if I spend most of my time regurgitating and rehashing my old experience, that's out of time and out of space. As in, it's not only culturally independent, or like it's culturally dependent, it's also time dependent, like societally dependent. So when I say, oh yeah, my formal education was really great, I'm using it as an anecdote to draw similarities or contrast with the current state of things. right? I don't talk about WaniKani in the sense that I don't find value in SRS. I try to use WaniKani to see what the value of SRS is for current language learners. I don't need this. I'm trying to learn why this is needed or feels needed by others. And with that, I can leverage whatever it is in order to relate to people. So why did I choose Duolingo? This is a really close approximation of why I use Duolingo. Where do most people start? Duolingo. And then someone had in my opinion, this is a nod to maybe 2 or 3 people who comes by and trolls all the time back in the early days. Some people have the audacity to come to me and say that I'm pushing an agenda and I'm supporting a product that maliciously hurt people for trying to learn a language. As in, like, there was 2 people who frequently and consistently check back in every once in a while to tell me that if I spend my efforts streaming and interacting with Duolingo, I'm basically supporting an evil corporation that is brainwashing people to think that they are learning a language, but they're not with Duolingo. I would use, those are pretty extreme words that would come out of my mouth when I'm quoting someone, but I'm using euphemisms. Those are not the words that these people used. They actually used incredibly aggressive, disrespectful words to describe Duolingo users in general. And, you know, I happen to be a Duolingo user, so I'm part of that group, right? It's indistinguishable, it's indiscriminate, or it is discriminate, but it's indiscriminate against the type of people who would use Duolingo, right? The bigger the population, the more likely you're encompassing different people. Yeah. Okay, that's a little interesting. Oh, I had another short story, but I don't know how to segue to that short story. Maybe we'll talk about the algo. Here's my short story. I thought this was pretty funny. I'm not sure how often you doom scroll. I know doom scrolling is a really nice buzzword right now. So here's my hot take. I bought for those who are not familiar with me, I typically construct a parable or some sort of short story or anecdote for every single stream, right? This is my routine in which to gather enough things to talk about whenever the situation presents itself. So one of the hot takes is dealing with doom scrolling. We'll relate it back to algo. Algo is something that creates confirmation bias, right? It's one of the biggest sources of confirmation bias. And one of the confirmation bias is how to efficiently learn a language. But we'll come back to that. Today, I typically doom scroll like 15 minutes to 30 minutes before a stream, right? Before a stream, just to see if I can come up with additional material. So today, I've noticed, due to the, let's just say, lots of factors, but one would be company incentive, engagement design, and content creation, right? Content creation. Considering all these, just keeping these in mind because this is a hot take, it's very rapid. I was looking at a post, right? And I like to curate my algorithm, my personal algorithm, my YouTube channel and stuff. All tracking and stuff is removed, so I could use that as a scholastic, like a social experiment. However, my personal account, I curate. So whenever I'm like doom scrolling, I frequently go to not interested, right? Because there are things that I'm not interested in. I'm a novelty seeker. I tend to be a novelty seeker. I like to do the opposite of doom scrolling. I don't like seeing the same things over and over again, right? Or a facsimile of it, right? For a facsimile of it. Now, hear me out. Due to the nature of company incentive, engagement prone things, and the flexibility of content creation, I noticed one thing that has become incredibly a confirmation of the algo and the behavior. So I was scrolling. It's like, oh hey, look, it's a cat video, right? And I look at the credits. I immediately look down at the credits and try to learn a little bit about the poster. Well, the poster turns out to be a reposter. And you know a reposter when you look at their content, and it would be a collection of stuff, and their mission statement would be to share things that are interesting on the internet, and then a reposter tends to be categorical. Whatever is trendy, right? So this would be, if it's a cat video, it would be a channel dedicated to the collection of cat videos, okay? So I'm like, okay, I saw that one. Oh, that's a pretty good video. So it's a one cat video. And then I scrolled for maybe, doom scrolling is really efficient. Like that's what makes doom scrolling scary, because it's like WaniKani, SRS. Doom scrolling is SRS. Okay? Like, I don't know if anyone sees the connection between how WaniKani, Anki are so efficient for language learning. Doom scrolling is very, very similar. Remember, like, keep in mind, one of my major themes is behavioral normality. Behavioral normacy. Sorry, not normality. Normacy. I can't spell normacy. But so if you're already doom scrolling and you're used to interacting with your media and taking in information a specific way, there's a natural inclination to seek that while doing something productive or perceivably productive. WaniKani SRS in itself is a built-in algorithm for doom scrolling. Doom scrolling is arguably one of the statistically normalized behavior of people's lifestyles now. So when you have a system, by coincidence, it happens to reflect in old school SRS, and I call it old school because you do SRS before this was automated. I have been doing SRS before it was an automated process. The SRS where you surrender control of the content to an opaque algo, that's the main difference. No, people surrender to SRS all the time. Like, this is opaque too. It's only as opaque as people are passively introduced. Like the algo. So I'm going to continue with my story. So curation happens. So you can remove things out of the queue, right? You can remove things out of the queue, right? When you said not interested, that thing won't show up for another year on average. It's like 6 months to a year. So yes, you do have control over it. You surrender voluntarily, right? Much like you surrender voluntarily to WaniKani, you surrender voluntarily, or you would be like, enough is enough. Let's put a script on this, and I want to tweak it to my thing. The difference why it doesn't sound like it's controlled is because people view Japanese as one thing, which I don't see it as one thing when it comes to SRS. SRS is the arrangement of their radicals, their arrangement of their kanji, the progression system. These are all choices that this group has made. And you can choose to not surrender by applying a script over them. You would actually argue that the WaniKani SRS or Hanzi is very transparent in terms of what will come up and when. I didn't say it wasn't transparent. I said, you're saying surrender. That's a voluntary choice. You can choose to use WaniKani without knowing how it works. You are saying it's very transparent. That's great. If the sky hits you in the face, You can choose to surrender to the sky, or you can choose to observe the sky. In the day and age of doom scrolling, you can choose to know how doom scrolling works, or you can let it go. This is my observation about doom scrolling. So, I didn't surrender to doom scrolling. I'm studying how doom scrolling works. So, yes, doom scrolling is actually very transparent. To me, is very transparent. Like the patterns are there. So I'm going to talk about a pattern for today. So, no, people can use WaniKani and Anki and know nothing about how it works, even if it's transparent, right? That's called passive learning. You don't have to, and that was the whole point of me raising the bunk about you can learn what WaniKani is doing for you because it's very transparent, and then you can take that and take what you know they're doing and apply it elsewhere. The vast majority of app users do not do that. I would even take a bet against you that over 50% of their users do not. Instead, they try to look for something that's similar to WaniKani so that they don't have to learn what it does. Hanzahiro exists because it's an iterative design on WaniKani, so that the only context that actually change is Chinese and Japanese. And Kevin spends so much time distinguishing the difference in the process between Hanzahiro and WaniKani because people don't want to figure out what is the difference and what's the similarities. In fact, most of the things that Kevin said, it's transparent on Hanzahiro. Like, you look at the options, you look at the things, and I'm stating these things. That doesn't stop Kevin from repeating over and over again. It's like, hey, this is exactly like WaniKani, so you're just trying to make it exactly like WaniKani, right? And then Kevin has to reply, no, we don't. WaniKani does these things, we do these things. It's like, why don't you just, I mean, it's like WaniKani, why don't you just do the same as WaniKani? I want this to be exactly like WaniKani, but that person, when they were going to explain what they think WaniKani was doing to Kevin, it was not the same. I don't think whatever that guy was described WaniKani accurately. And not only that, they couldn't understand what Kevin was saying about his Hanzahiro design choices. So yes, things can be incredibly transparent. Surrendering control is a choice. So if you choose not to notice something, no matter how transparent it is, you can't see it, right? It's kind of like saying, oh, politics is always in your face, but you don't choose to notice it, right? The news broadcast is always in your face. The ads are always in your face, and yet you don't notice it. When you walk outside and you look at the same tree for the 100th time, it can be as transparent as possible, and you won't notice it. This is what I mean by passive. Anyways, like that guy Shin, I'm a little bit passionate about this topic, so sorry if I'm a little high energy right now. So let's get back to our story. So I saw this cat video, right? This is the nebulous nature of if you're gonna take the OPEG algorithm, right? So I saw a cat video. I'm like, oh yeah, that's nice. 2 minutes later, so roughly, for me, I kind of scroll fairly quickly. 20 clips later, I see another cat video. And I'm like, wait a minute. Haven't I already seen this cat video? It was the same cat video. Only this time, I looked at the credentials and it's another channel that collects and shares clips. Okay? So then I go and curate and say, not interested. That removes this channel from the rotation for some time, right? I would say you can kind of see it after another 6 months or so, or you enrich it incredibly for cat videos. So I'm like, oh yeah, I watched a cat video again because I kind of want to talk about cats because Blair likes cats. Then 2 minutes later, I saw another cat video. And this time it has 2 cat videos in it that includes the last 2 cat videos. And yes, it was another reposter. So I have yet to determine where the original cat video came from. I think this one had a credit to it. This one did not, and compilations do not, right? So then I type not interested because I don't like getting more of the same thing, right? So 2 minutes later, I encountered a compilation of cat videos. So a minute compilation of cat videos, and it included this, all the cat videos in this, and the previous. So then I click not interested again, and this repeated for over 15 minutes of scrolling, like over 15 minutes of scrolling. Eventually I stopped after I saw a compilation of 10 cat videos. All of them were remixed with bass boosted music in automated text to speech, and so many filters. And I still ended up consuming, on average, the same 10 to 15 cat videos. Like the identical 10 to 15 cat videos were collectively in this group of things. So no matter what I did in not interesting, it does not change the idea that all of these are separate channels. And those separate channels are reposting and remixing existing cat videos. And the cat videos span from a cat video that I recognized from 15 years ago to a cat video that seems like a low effort post because they wanted to share, but I would rather understand why they post that video. But since the original poster is not there, I can't like go to their channel and say, oh, that's cute, they just wanted to, you know, show their new cat that they really like, and that's context. And no, it's a compilation of cat videos that are supposed to be like funny or adorable, but they got remixed, heavy boosted, hyper stimulated, super filtered. How can one possibly have too many cat videos in their feed? Wait, hear me out. You like, I know you can't have too much cat videos. I still watch them, okay? So like the end of the story, you know what's now here? I am part of the problem still. Like what I mean is, if you think this is a problem, which I don't think it's a problem per se, as long as you don't, you know, surrender to it. Like what I mean is, if you're on my page and you see that this is happening, like, oh, hey, the YouTube algorithm is feeding me the same things, right? But it's people who deliberately circumvented the system, right? And in the system, they took advantage of the system to iterate on it. Because in the end of the day, I still have watched all these YouTube videos, all these YouTube clips, these shorts. Like all of these people got a view. And then not only that, let's try to understand the algorithm. If I were to click like or dislike, maybe like, oh, this is so old, this is a reposter, let me dislike this. That's engagement for that clip. That makes it even more likely that it will show up on someone else's feed. And no matter what, in order for me to determine if it's the same cat videos, I have to see all the clips, right? The entire clip, because I like to know what's in the clip. I'm adding to the view count, which increases its retention in people's feeds. So what happens is, no matter what you do, you will be exposed to the same thing. Not because, right, I know the algorithm, I'm really harsh on the algorithm a lot of times, but algorithm doesn't have a feeling. which is kind of nice in a way, but I do feel for the people who are in charge of this, right? YouTube have staff that manages these things. So by extension, it can harm them for all the pure, fast, convenient things that the algorithm offers, right? It's a living SRS. It reminds you of the things you love all the time. When you get on YouTube, it reminds you, it blasts your face with all the things you want to see, right? Hey, did you remember this cat video from 15 years ago? Hey, there's this guy who made a compilation of all the cat videos you've seen, and now you've been reminded of every single cat video that you've seen in the last 15 years, right? And hey, here's some heavy bassed boosted ear blasting music that you remembered from your Gen Z days, because that's when people like to break the, you know, sound ceiling of everything, right? And then, or it's that same song that's played 100 times over, like what was it, like the Pedro song, but it's bass boosted. Like it's the same song you've heard like 10,000 times within an iteration, the same like clip, like the 30-second bit of that song at least 100 times in 30 minutes. Like, because every other, they use it to farm views. So it's crazy when you step back and think about it. Like, I'm describing this because I'm not showing clips right now, right? Like, I don't want to show a clip. If you see this happening, it happens in real time. The moment you pull out your YouTube shorts, you're going to be scrolling and it becomes a passive process. People will, it's crazy how efficient it is. And you know what? When I set company incentives, so engagement is guaranteed, whether you dislike it, where you go in the comments, like, stop reposting other people's stuff. That increases engagement, increases the likelihood that someone else is going to see that video. So if they comment, it still goes up and people will still consume it even more, right? And then content creation, it elevates content creation. And what is the company incentive? They actually provide convenience to do this. If you're on your phone, you look at the clip, you can remix it, right? You can remix it. So like, okay, so let's start a channel and we just remix all of them. Like, oh, this is technically fair use because I'm reposting. I just added my own song on top. And then you can make an argument like, well, you know, I'm not monetizing it, so I'm not getting any money. But then you build a channel and then you can monetize anything else that you want, which can be something to build on. So there are also channel farms, that I would say channel farms as in they build a channel to sell the channel. And the channel is built on more or less the bootstrapping that AI generated material does. So when you're thinking about it, it's like, so now we usher in a time of automation for creation using AI models, right? AI models. And now you're thinking, oh no, now I don't even have to look for videos in order to repost something that's not like that video, but it's based on a data set of those videos. And in those times, you know, in between, you might be wondering, so what's in between all the cat videos? Like, you've got to see other things other than cat videos. It's like, yes, I still see the Japanese, the multicultural channels that I watch. So that's where I gather most of my short stories. But in the process, this is part of the experience. The cat videos and the AI generated content. And the AI generated content, you take a cat video that, so there are cat videos. I'm going to stay with cats because people are usually okay with cats. There's a cat video that suspiciously looked like another cat video, but you start thinking, wait, why does this look a little off? Now you get AI cat videos based on cat videos. Like, there are storytelling ones now with text to speech. All the text to speech are LLMs. Most of them are LLMs now because you can tell by how reproducible their lines are. As in, here's a repost of a cat video by a channel, right? But then if you Yet another one that's similar to it, you click on that channel and you look, that channel is following the channel that did it, like that the two channels are associated. So it could be one person. I can't confirm that. Obviously, I don't do a lot of digging for these things. It's not my brand. I don't like, people are being efficient. They're being pragmatic. If you want to make money, that's certainly a way to make money. You get one channel, which is linked to another channel, which reproduces that channel, only you switch up a little bit using LLMs. So then you have the same video that's hard to reproduce, but that video then gets two announcers for that video, and both those channels will make money. And the cycle continues. So what does that do to the user experience who isn't passively, passively getting inundated about the things? Me, I sit there hitting not interested. It's like I watch the thing, so I'm complicit, as in I support it. The video, I watched it, then I click not interested, not interested, not interested. And after, I think I've been doing this for 2 years straight now, the frequency of these things only increased over time. Like, and you might be thinking, well, that's not fair. Like, this can't possibly happen when humans are creating content creation. No, it does. Before auto-generated automation, there would be a content creator that I watch, like, say, someone who takes photographs of dogs. I'll let you decide on which person I'm talking about, because if you can't decide on which person I'm talking about, that is the reason. How content creation. So, I watch it for a little bit. I really like this guy. I'm not going to tell you who it is because it could be any one of them. That's the foreshadow. And then after, a month or so, then I will see another guy who does the same thing. Only this time, maybe they'll be in Japan. And it's like, oh, that's kind of neat. Right? This guy was American, as far as I know. I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. They're in Japan, and this guy's Belgium. Yeah, I know, Gecko. It's a coincidence, but this guy's Belgium, and he currently resides in Japan, doing the same bit that this American person goes around taking pictures of dogs and people. So I actually watched that guy because this guy speaks a little bit of Japanese when he interacts with the things. It's like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then I get another person who is doing the same thing. Now, I'm not being reductive here. It's like I actually keep these guys in the algorithm. It's like, oh, that's kind of nice. How many other people are there? They're in Malaysia. So they're in Malaysia. It's not a coincidence because churn is Malaysian. So, the algorithm is already sieving all my search results, right? I've been looking at Malaysian content. I've been looking at Japanese content. I've been learning a little bit about Belgian because you are Belgian, Gecko. And then, I like dogs. I like cats because Blair likes cats. So now what happens is my entire algorithm is, look at how beautiful this is, right? This is how the algorithm works. It's amazing. It's SRS reminding you of the things you talked about. It's like, oh, hey, and by the way, I do this intentionally. I keep my phone on my desk. It's in earshot of my voice, and these phones are always listening. Like I'm enabling them to be always listening, because when I go to bed or go to evening, I search my feed, my news feeds and stuff, not just like TikToks or something. I don't TikTok, but like my Google Pixel to look at world news or something that's relevant, things like that. And all of these converge. So I like photographs, but according to my search results and stuff, I've been talking about Malaysian culture, Japanese. We raised Belgium a little bit, right? Blair loves her cats. And what does that do? It's an SRS to remind me of all the things that I have talked about. So there was this thing that I've been getting this comment quite a bit because I don't often meet a lot of new people, and those people don't often stay. But those people who do stay, they often eventually make this comment like, "Oh, hey, I'm surprised I'm surprised you memorized that, or I'm surprised you still remember that. It's like, oh, hey, remember that conversation we had? And my thought was, I usually integrate those things into my lifestyle so that I can keep people's details relevant. To be interested in a person makes their comments and their information relevant. And when it becomes relevant, it's easier to remember. I'm so bad with names, relatively speaking, but I make room for all the details that I remember. So yes, I concede that I might forget your name, but if you give me a slight context clue, everything just comes flooding back, because that's how SRS works, especially SRS with mnemonics. So the moment these things feed, I use them operationally as helpfulness. So why do I go on shorts? It's not for doom scrolling. Well, technically it is. Like, I'm still doom scrolling no matter what, right? However, I use it to see if I can integrate any of that material, which often is curated or it's automated, and then I have to curate it again, right? But I look for intersections of the things that are important to me. So when someone tells me a detail like Attack on Titan, guess what the YouTube short is filled with? It's filled with reposts of scenes on Attack on Titan, but then eventually you get to trivia about Attack on Titan, where like someone for the 15th time in a row has told me a fun I bet you didn't know. It's almost ironic at this point. The I bet you didn't know meme for content creators. Like, I don't think people think of it as a meme, but to me, I think of it as a meme because they are not aware of how the algorithm works. But they are aware of how ignorant, and this is not like about a competence, it's ignorant of the algorithm. As in, people will doom scroll, but the way they consume the doom scrolling is passive. Like, you don't need to make the effort, right? It's saving a lot of energy. You don't need to make the effort of remembering things if the algorithm is so much better at getting you to remember those things. What I mean by that is, if you forgot a cat video, don't worry, it's going to come up in the next like 2 minutes. It's like, oh, if you like this trivia game with these questions, don't worry, it's going to come up again in the next 2 or 3 minutes. So the idea is, not only are people like, obviously I'm being a little argumentative here, Gecko, I like to wager or offer an alternative perspective. I think the idea that regardless of how transparent what the algorithm is doing, if people are being reminded of the information they seek, they no longer care about how things work. They just need to know what, I mean, sometimes they know why it works, but it takes a lot more to get to how it works. And even then, it's not, they don't consider why it works. It just does, is how it comes about. So when you're thinking about doom scrolling, how do you raise awareness of doom scrolling? You have to be considering why it works, and then ultimately how it works. Like, how did you just, like, how did one lose 30 minutes and gained 0 new information? And what I mean by 0, it's the feeling of not gaining any information. Well, if I doom scrolled cat videos and surrender to it, right? As in, I don't curate or make an effort to know that I've been watching the same cat videos over 15 minutes, right? Or similar cat videos to the point where the nuance of the cat videos have bleed together, then I could continue doing that every single day, right? Every single day. You get up, it's like, oh, hey, that's the same cat video. It still hits, right? It still hits. It hits the same. Like the comments that you, nowadays, when the ones that hit really well, they are often the ones that get reposted. And the comments, some of the top comments are like, oh yeah, this hits the same as yesterday when I watched like 100 times over. Like, is it me? Is it bad? Or I have spent the last 15 minutes watching this thing play over for the last 30 seconds? Like, it's gotten to the point where you don't even need, in my opinion, this is a little exaggeration, but you don't need reposters to get someone to sit there and watch the same clip back to back for 15 minutes straight. And hear me out, I also watch clips multiple times. Usually is because I miss something. Yes, even in that 1 minute clip, I sometimes think something outside and I miss something, so I go back. And the nice thing about YouTube Shorts now is you can actually skip around. Back in the day, you weren't able to skip around within a clip, so you would have to wait for the whole clip to play back around, and then if you miss it again, you wait and you play it all the way back around again. That it's so crazy. When you back in the day, it's like last year, right? Like 2 years ago, like a year and 2 years ago, back in the day, right? It's crazy. Like I don't I'm like I sit there and I'm baffled. I want to go around now and ask people what they watch each day on their shorts feed, and I want to encourage people to quantify, analyze, look at the material that's there. I can totally understand how one could get so used to it where they no longer observe that they're being fed at least 60% of the time something that has already been presented to them. That's kind of like and then we're gonna dial it back to language learning, okay? It's kind of like, okay, you burned all 3,000 words, right? You burned all 3,000 words. It's not 3,000 kanji, sorry. But now, instead of making them less frequent, the pool of novel content has been exhausted. So what do? You iterate on it. So now they don't become less frequent, they become more frequent. So the algorithm, this is where I would differentiate. I think one of my biggest differentiate, not that you have to agree, Gecko, right? But I think I'm leading to the core difference. The core difference is, when it comes to learning, people think of this as, surprise, surprise, a progress continuum, right? And the nice thing is you're extending the time, right? So you're getting exposure less frequently. The algorithm does exactly the opposite. So over time, you actually learn less and less. Isn't that crazy? What do we call that nowadays? Brain rot. It's coming all together, man. I'm not writing a book. Well, I'm not writing a book, but one day we're gonna have a long essay where I write this all out. But it's coming full circle here. Full circle. So one of the defining features of algorithm-based search results is to make you learn less and less comfortably. So the longer you doom scroll, the less and less the pool of interest, and the less interesting your life is. You become less interested in whatever you're thinking, right? And that creates that feeling of surrendering. You surrendered to the algorithm because the algorithm has convinced you that you have learned what you like, and they're going to continue to feed you what you like. So you'll no longer be interested in anything new. It keeps you engaged permanently. It desensitizes you It desensitizes you to novel ideas because it's so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable now. And because human condition is weird, you need more and more of it. You need more and more stimuli to feel the same, because human condition is an adaptive process. So when you have a specific dopamine, right, you need more of it over time. So when you learn less and less, your interest gets more narrow and narrower. You need more and more of that to engage you, and then you get stuck. You're on TikTok for like 6 hours straight, 8 hours straight. And what do? You do the least possible. It enriches for the same thing. Like, and I know you were joking about the whole cat videos things. I joke about it a lot of times too. And it sucks for me to say this. I used to also say this out of like sheer like endearment, because there weren't a lot of cat videos back then. But nowadays, yes, there is such thing as too much cat videos. And unfortunately, it's such a negative statement, because content creation is beautiful for so many other things. However, hyper optimization, convenient tools and optimization plays on the human condition. We want to be more efficient. We want to use less effort to make more stuff. And that more stuff is iterating so fast with the convenience of optimization that novelty is no longer, it's not a thing. Like technology has sped iteration so fast, novelty doesn't even naturally generate that fast, right? LLMs make it so that you don't even need to do that anymore. And it's not necessarily based on novelty. It's based on existing data sets. They're trying to elicit more iteration on existing products, right? Existing things. And here I'm thinking, yeah, I totally understand it now. Like in the evening one day, I spent 1 hour watching family vlogs one day. And my thought was, oh, I love these things. They're all nice and really pleasant and wholesome, and they're all original posts, right? Right? They're family vlogs. But then I started thinking, oh my gosh. Then like I sit back, I sober up, and I start thinking about all the pros and cons of how family vlogs are now. Like some of the consequences of family vlog due to original content and becoming content creators. Oh, some of the family vlogs, like, yes, I get fed the wholesome stuff, right? Because it selects for wholesome stuff. But then I become entirely ignorant, completely ignorant to all the not so wholesome stuff. And I get reminded of it because I tell myself this is not all that is, right? Because your vision is only limited to what the algo is giving you. So when you think of, and this might sound like a pessimistic thing, but it's more for me to ground stuff, right? Ground stuff. When you see a happy dog video, there are also not happy dog videos, but you don't see them, right? So what you think in the future is that you can only react to happy dog videos and you have no tolerance for the reality, which there can be not happy dog videos. So all of these things become a confirmation. You immediately, it takes, sometimes I worry, I get convinced in a month's time of something, and I would go out of my way to consciously try to challenge that notion. I can't even imagine what it's like to be in like someone who's younger than 18. Like I can't even imagine how fast the algorithm can convince an 18-year-old of anything. Like one day they're gonna see someone on a skateboard and they go on YouTube, they search skateboard, and suddenly they want to be a skateboarder. And you might be thinking, oh, that's kind of neat. You know, they were inspired. It's like, no.
no, a grain of salt. It's very difficult to know if they were convinced because they were inundated by a biased algorithm. I know algorithms can't be biased, right? You might be thinking, oh, the objective nature is algorithms can't be biased. They are seeded by the bias of the human being. The human is seeding the initial seed, right? So if the human is limited in life experiences, as in they don't have any life experience yet because they're a growing little goober, right? Then the seed ends up predominating over all their future experiences. It's very different if you take a 40-year-old who's been through like, you know, Cloud 9 and like they've been through a lot. So the idea of seeding that thing will be still smaller, relatively speaking, to the summation of all their experiences. If you have a 13-year-old, some of the first things that they encounter are the things that will be the most impressionable things in their lives. But now you have an algorithm that can amplify that. What would take years of someone's life's exposure by circumstance to like 30 minutes. So yeah, I would not be surprised, but I would still be a little scared when the next time my, someone that I care about, like my nephew or something, says, oh, you know what? Jumping off high places is very, very fun. I saw these people parkouring off buildings. And my first thought is, let's sit down. My dear nephew, let's sit down and talk about all the possibilities before you go online and look at parkour videos. Because the first thing I would be concerned about is I want to tell my nephew that you're going to be convinced of a lot of things on the internet the moment you search for parkour videos. But may I have the time before this happens to keep some things in mind for you so that I don't want to hear from my relatives that you suddenly decide it's a great idea to like start jumping off buildings and parkouring off buildings right away because the algorithm has convinced you it's the best thing since sliced bread, right? That's kind of a scary situation. I know this is a little bit fear-mongering, but it can also be things like someone says, I want to learn Japanese. And I'm like, go for it. So it can be a different, it can be both. It's so double-edged. It's so efficient, right? If my nephew came out and was like, I want to learn Japanese, it's like, okay, go ahead. Just go and Google something. You'll probably figure it out. Because the moment the hypothetical nephew say, how do I learn Japanese? They're just going to be entrenched in it, right? And my only thought to say to my nephew is, okay, remember that take your time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. So some of the stuff that maybe can be habit forming, right? Telling them that kind of thing. Like, take your time. Remember that this is hard work. Like the stuff that isn't apparent in the algorithm. Like remember that learning Japanese takes a long time. There are many ways to learn. Go and explore them. Remember that the first thing you look at isn't the end all be all. If you hear a lot of popular things, go try them out and see what works, right? That's the kind of thing that you might want to supersede before YouTube convince them that there's only one way and the best way, and they go down a rabbit hole, and then they bank their entire life value on it. So when they fail, it's like their whole universe collapse, right? And that's what that's reminding me of, like we can relate it back to cat videos. The idea that someone likes cats now, like kids that like cats, I'm not even sure if it's because they watch a lot of cat videos or they don't watch dog videos, right? Or they don't get the chance to watch dog videos. We have to me, what you don't do is also incredibly important. then what you do now, I know I said do. Shut up, fictitious. I feel like fictitious is gonna make a poop joke. What they do now, largely because of the algorithm's existence. Back in the day, I wouldn't be as concerned, where like there's not like such a strong enrichment for an idea that it eliminates the rest of the idea, right? Like, for example, this guy learned Japanese without ever making a mistake. So therefore, when you learn Japanese, you'll never make a mistake, right? What you don't see, it doesn't exist. Not like in today's day, in the younger generation, when they don't see it, right? It doesn't exist. Before it used to be a random chance is going to happen, right? When you start something, you're gonna hit road bumps, and that is gonna be the norm. That establishes the norm for the child. However, now, before the child ever starts something, they already have a model that's reinforced and slammed in your face as fast as possible. So you, no matter what you do, you start with an image, a goal of what it is. So what does Japanese language learning look like? I can earnestly say a substantial number of people did not have the same thought that I did. But those substantial people probably had similar thoughts to each other. The younger they get, not the older. I think the older, the more varied it is. So like you and me, Gecko, we would have very differing images and preferences and preferences and biases, right? However, that doesn't mean downstream we don't coincidentally end up having similarities, right? That's where objectivity comes in. When you approach something with different biases, when you sample everyone, you will have collective patterns that illustrates what the unifying things of language learning. So for me, think about this. I love teaching, and I want to still be an efficient teacher for people in the future in some way professionally. Like sometime down the line, I really do see myself going back to teaching professionally. My first thought is, if I see this stuff now, I would have to make major adjustments to how to disseminate information that would either compete or negotiate with this type of learning capacity. Because, and this is probably one of my manic things in the back that I think about a lot. What are the chances, right? What are the chances? This is correlation, not causation. What are the chances that because of algorithm and influencer-based popularity, that formal education is failing? And not because it's solely banked on that formal education is failing to adapt to current technology. Now, I'm a great proponent of all of the above. You know, a little from column A, a little from column B, in order to desensitize complacency. So I'm gotten to a point where I was thinking, maybe formal education being different is a blessing in disguise for the future, right? Like, you could wish that formal education catches up and like adapts to technology, but my thought immediately is, doesn't that make it non-distinguishable from algorithm? So if you have that, I almost feel like that ends up diminishing the entire building foundation of formal education, which is to expose kids obligatorily to different stimuli, different challenges, and figuring out where their strengths and weaknesses are. The algorithm doesn't do that. The algorithm typically just tells you what you're good at, right? If there's anything you're it's good at telling you is it's telling you what you're interested in, and then you're convince yourself that what you like, what you're interested in, which could be just because you see it all the time, you normalized it, then that's what your life is shaped up to be. So what to me, it's also even difficult to know if content creators are being content creators because they consume a lot of content by content creators, or they genuinely like the act of content creation. Why do I say this? After 3 or 4 years, most of those content creators hit a physical, mental, and very real mental like breakdown, or burnout, or some sort of pitfall, and that creates a wake-up call. Now, some can double down, and most people are unfortunately, tragically not going to recover from it. And I start thinking, so what is cause and effect now? Is content creation really that appealing, or is it because of the inundation of its normalization? Right. Well, wait. The only social media you're on is Facebook. Oh, that's interesting. And you definitely don't like where it's at in terms of what I see in your feed compared to a few years ago. As a result, I use it less and less. I have used Facebook so seldomly, and that's for its text function. So I only communicate with Facebook people to make up like meetings and like meetups and that kind of thing. You're on LinkedIn too? I peruse LinkedIn quite a bit. But you don't doom scroll there? Interesting. I sometimes am guilty of doom scrolling LinkedIn. Or like job postings like on Indeed. I would like just scroll on Indeed. I know that sounds weird. It's like, why do you want to? Well, I mean, I think of jobs all the time. I like keeping myself productive. I wanted to see like what jobs are being posted all the time and stuff. And you're on YouTube regularly, but you don't watch shorts. I watch shorts again to get the idea. These are where the idea is. You can still sometimes doom scroll regular videos based on where I autoplay regular videos as I'm doing work. Like legitimately, if I have a series that I like, I just autoplay it in the background. And that's like possibly arguably even more efficient than doom scrolling. I don't know. Had you popped up on your YouTube homepage one day so it's not all bad? Hey, oh, I popped up on your YouTube oh, that's interesting. That's the first time I've heard that before. As a parent, I certainly relate to the fear of the stimuli. Well, it was a great thank you for having a conversation again, Gecko. I know I use you as a crutch for inspirational segues. By the way, before you go to bed, did you know that segue is spelled this way? I just learned that from Blair. Maybe not so long ago. I generally wrote segue this way, but apparently this is how you work segue. And you have a French background, right? I just wanted to throw that out there, right? Segue. Anyways, thanks for hanging out again. I hope getting back to work and whatnot is going to be good for you. Good luck. Right. Oh, you were there when that was said? Oh yeah. Oh, that was news to you too? Really? Oh, wait. Segue. Sorry. I even misspelled segue. Sorry. Segue. Yes. Segue. Sorry. Like I didn't know that. Sorry, Fetisha's got my back here. Yeah, with an E. I'm like, what the heck? Anyways. Yeah, take care. Have a good one, Gecko. It was a nice conversation to end the WaniKani session. Always learning. Yes. Good luck. Have a great work week if I don't see ya. Yep. Alright. So, I think I can refresh and do... It's 8 o'clock. We can do the rest of the review. Yeah, here we go. Let's do the rest of the reviews. Okay. I can segue. I'll show you a segue, Fictitious. 38 reviews, not too bad. Let's do these. Okay. I dragged out my time intentionally to get the rest of the review. All planned. No worries.
Okay. Whoops. Okay. Which one did I go with here? Moon? Okay. I wasn't sure if it was moon or month. uh oh. Oh. It's just she. Whoops. Right. Right. I'm not counting the units. Whoops. Right. Right. How do you spell ninth? How do you spell ninth? Oh, there's no E. I'm like, that doesn't look right. Sorry. English is hard. I don't want to talk about it. 9. 9. Yeah, I'll show you a 9. Uh. Oh. Wait, what was the name of this? Was it tent? Is it TP? It's not TP. Can't be enter. Oh, it is. I'm like, is this supposed to be a tent? I was thinking more from a drawing perspective. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Ninth day is coconut day, right? Kokonoka. Was this supposed to be sun or day? Okay. Oh, that's Stan. Whoops. That's Stan. This is bound to happen at some point. I should stop. I should really consider not thinking about the mnemonics and see if the rest sticks. Wait. Did this go straight to Shiro? Dang it! Onyomi. Oh, Haku. That's fine. Not enough context. Okay. What was the mnemonic for Nanoka? Oh, nah, no ka. This one still makes me giggle. Oh, nope. This is me. uh, I guess that works. I didn't know which one, women, female. I guess both should be fine. All the early ones are here. Oh, this is purple, so it's he. The vocab. Oops. Uh-oh. What did they go with? Did they go with, like, not crossbeam, right? Did they go with construction? Oh, okay. Not the sun, right? Okay. Is that how you spell eighth? Okay. No. Just kidding. Like yogurt. I'm about to sneeze. Sorry. Okay. Sweet. You. Hooray! It wasn't that bad. So, I jumped the gun, right? I jumped the gun, and then I jumped the gun on here too. So that's fine. Wait, we knew what the errors were immediately. Complete regrets immediately. We got some master stuff. Woohoo! Alright. Hold up. I gotta blow my nose. Alright, so let's do our routine. Those heckin' cat videos. Alright, okay. So harmonics. Let's do harmonics. It's getting close to the end of these mnemonics, man. So, very quick. Spoon, winter, dry, canopy, fingers, window, heart, direction, stool, fur, father, old, lid, task, arrow, door, poop, towel, life, now, hat, triceratop, ice, and stone. Right. Clap. Okay, our reads for this level. Oh, eventually we're gonna have to scale this. Kanji is gonna have to scale because the reads are gonna take too long when we're like reading all the reads, all the potential reads on all of them. So we might have to change this step in the future. So for now, we'll keep doing that. Mon. Mon. Nai. Un. Setsu. Hon. go. You. Wait, is you? No, you is fine. Yes, you. I. Show. He. Shin. To. To. Ho. Oh, actually, we might want to check ho. Okay, fine. Ho. You. Chi. Chi or to. Ne? Mo. Se. No, not se. Oh yeah. No. No, she. That's she. Puyu. Hako. Haku. No, hako. Pu. Ne? No. Oh, no. Hoku. 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 Han. This is Han Solo. Oh, this was a weak point. So, Han Solo. Guy. Soto. Shi. Hiro. Hiro? Hiro is... Yep. Hiro. Aha. Aha and Ka. Aha and Ka. This one was one of the weak ones too. Today we hesitated. Why do we hesitate on this one? Yo. Oh, because the task is to consume yogurt. Yo. Oh, we also paused on this one too. Yeah. Actually, is yeah? No. Yeah might actually be, yeah. Yeah is kun. And ne? Nandesu ka? Life. Oh, se and shou and ji for the Lebowski thing. Actually, is ji? No, ji is. Oh, I guess it's and then what were our two errors? I was doing yon, right? I was thinking yon and I was thinking shi, but I forgot shi. For on? Yes. And what? How was it she? What was the mnemonic for it? Oh, sheep. Something dealing with sheep. I should look that up. I don't remember what did it have for sheep? Oh, you're bending your legs. Oh, I remember this. You're bending your legs into a box, and from the front you look like a sheep. That's kind of maybe a Minecraft sheep. And then we have Stan Litu, which I accidentally typed Boon for Boon. So
Ritsu. For standing, we're supposed to imagine the hallway, the doorsman, they like the door people, they stand up straight, very, very straight. So Ritsu. In the Ritsu place. There was actually another read on it that hasn't been introduced yet. Let's look at Ritsu for a moment. Ritsu. There it is. And Ritsu and Ryu. Yeah, there's no Ryu mnemonic yet. So Ryu. Okay. And that's it for today. 2.5 hours. Pretty solid. Yeah, the volume is volume. We got another 3 days. 3 days until our next peak. Our next peak volume. It's almost guaranteed. Almost. Right? If I drop 2 of these, if I get one of, so how do peak work, right? If I drop any of these 2 ones, if I make a mistake on any of these, on 2 of these, more than 2 of these, basically. If I make a mistake on these 2 pips, if I miss more than 2, then I'll fall behind. Although technically I could miss any of these 2, but then these I can miss twice. Anything with 3 pips or 4 pips, I can miss. Oh, actually, I can miss once on any 3 pips and miss twice on it, and it will still be synchronized with all the others. It's basically passing 27, and there are 30 here, right? It's 15 per row, so 15, 30. And we have 1 locked because that's probably rotating around for the front again, because I kind of butchered this. I forgot how I butchered this. Oh, I typed oil twice. I typed oil for this twice. I don't know. I don't know why when I think of old, I think of oil. Anyways, there you have it. Well done. That's a wrap for WaniKani today. There was a digression near the end, so we did all our lessons. I think maybe I should get on a little bit earlier from now on. Do our lessons and then do the chit chat. I really love the chit chat. It motivates me to look for new stories. I'm developing lots of stories and anecdotes and all that as I'm getting on, due to the nature of expecting to use a lot of these short stories, right? Every evening and then every morning I get up a little bit before stream, I typically consume some content and then use that content to vigorously adapt something to it. Sometimes it doesn't land because it's pigeonholed, right? But nowadays it's become quite a bit of a routine where I can throw it all the way back to language learning in some cases. Oh, I can't believe I'm saying this, or I can kind of sort of believe it. I still remember the days when I disliked essay writing, when I was writing essays and whatnot, and nowadays, oh, that's like my bread and butter at this point. So thanks for hanging out, folks. If you're only interested in WaniKani, right, in Japanese learning, and you're gonna watch this later, aras. No, just kidding. Arigas. Arimasu. Arigatou gozaimasu. Right. Minasan, mata ne. Ja ne. Until next time, I'm gonna get up, stretch, take a quick bathroom break, and I'll be back for Hanzo Hero. Thank you.